How's it going, guys? Thanks for stopping by the channel. So another year has passed, and that means it is, of course, time for another year-end State of the Watch Collection video. Now, if you've been to my channel frequently enough, you're likely going to realize that the state of my collection is actually quite fluid at times. Some of the pieces that I get in can really change over the course of a few months. That is because I do, of course, need content for this YouTube channel, and my tastes do happen to change quite frequently throughout my watch journey. So what I'd like to do is actually go chronologically through my current watch collection, starting with some of the keepers in my collection that I've had the longest, and then moving up to some of my most recent acquisitions, including this phenomenal Grand Seiko White Birch, which I'm wearing on the wrist today. But before actually taking a look at the watches, I do want to extend a very happy and healthy holiday season to you all ahead, and a happy new year. I know 2021 has had its challenges with a global pandemic and people not being as social as they would like to be. Alright, so why don't we flip the camera around now. You guys can check out the current state of my watch collection and to get some of the backstory on how I came to acquire each of these cool timepieces. Alright, so the watch that I've had the longest in my collection is a Seiko SARB035, coming up to almost 4 years now. And this is actually a watch that was mainly intended for the Japanese domestic market, and at the time that I picked it up, I actually did have to buy it from Japan. This watch actually became so successful that it did spawn a number of different Seiko models, like the Seri, the Sarks, and multiple Seiko Presage lines, that are very similar to this watch, although I don't think any of them capture the original essence quite like the SARB does. You can see I actually threw it on this vintage Jubilee style bracelet from Uncle Seiko to give it kind of that Rolex Datejust vibe. And this is actually one of the smallest watches that I own in my collection. I do have a fairly large wrist coming in at 7.5 inches, which is 19 centimeters in total circumference. But I still think that this watch just wears extremely well as a hybrid between a dress and a sports watch. But I was so impressed that I immediately rushed out to buy the SARB033 afterwards, which is the black dial colorway for the exact same watch. And later on in my watch journey, I did gift my twin brother the SARB033, and I kept the 035. So this watch isn't going anywhere. It's definitely a keeper in the collection. Okay, next up, we're going from Seiko to Grand Seiko, and this is my Grand Seiko SBGN 003. It's their high accuracy 9F quartz GMT. And when I bought this watch back at the end of 2019, it was a very aspirational timepiece. I had just returned from a nice vacation in Germany, visiting my German cousins, and even visiting Glashütte, which is the mecca of German watchmaking. And when I did return, I wanted a good GMT watch, and personally I do think that this is the most functional and well laid out GMT watch you can buy under $5,000 right now. The in-house 9F86 GMT movement has only gained about 7 seconds total since I owned this watch for the past 2 years, which is absolutely phenomenal. Probably in about 1 more year's time I will have to replace the battery, but again, I just think that this watch is the best laid out GMT that money can buy. And it's really nice to have a grab and go piece in the collection. And this watch is so accurate, I do set a lot of my other watches, automatic watches, to it. Alright, so up next is the Rolex Explorer, reference 214270. This is the recently discontinued 39mm iteration of the Explorer, which I think is actually the perfect size for my wrist. Now this watch is arguably the one watch collection because it's so versatile. You could honestly wear this watch very well with pretty much anything. It could be extremely casual, it could be with jeans and a t-shirt, or it could be with a business dress suit, and I think it would look the part. I was fortunate enough to actually pick up this watch last summer in 2020 on my birthday, and I wasn't actually expecting to see it. It was just sitting in the Rolex showroom at one of my local authorized dealers, so I snagged it, and it's been a great watch to have in the collection ever since. Next up is like the most affordable watch that I own in my collection. I paid less than $20 for this Casio World Timer on Amazon, and it's really one of the most well-worn watches in my collection because I wear it anytime I'm really active. If I go running, mountain biking, or to the gym, this is the watch I take with me because it's highly legible. I like the digital display for timing things, especially activities, and you don't really have to worry about it. On top of that, it's super thin and light, and I actually really like this silicone rubber band. I think it just fits my larger wrist quite well, and you really don't have to worry about it. It's got a 10-year battery life, and let's be honest, if I need to replace the battery, I'm probably just going to toss it and buy the similar model all over again. So I think Casio really just dominates the affordable category, and I honestly think that every well-rounded watch collection deserves a nice digital Casio watch. So about this exact same time last year, I was gifted this Breitling SuperOcean from my girlfriend, and I was really blown away because we did go watch shopping about this time last year, and she accompanied me to the authorized dealer, patiently waited while I tried on like a dozen different watches and killed over an hour in the authorized dealer, and then she pulled the trigger on this, and again, I was really blown away. This is the 42 millimeter iteration of the Breitling SuperOcean with 500 meters of water resistant. I really love this colorway. It's insanely legible. It's got amazing bezel action. Probably some of the best bezel action on any diver that I've ever felt. And it's surprisingly thin given the 500 meter water resistance, and I just really like how these lugs turn down to hug your wrist as well. So because this watch was gifted to me by my girlfriend, I really can't see it leaving the collection at all, and it's one of my favorite dive watches currently. So I do have a couple of lesser known brands, and this watch is the Halios Fairwind. It's their mid-size diver, coming in at 39 millimeters. It's a great no-date dive watch with a lot of features for the money. With the Halios, I really like the construction of their bracelet, which tapers very well, just plays with the light so nicely. And it even has this push-button toolless micro-adjustment system on the button of a clasp, which I find really amazing. This dive watch punches way above the price point, which typically comes in around 750 USD. And I honestly find this watch more comfortable than a comparable Tudor Black Bay 58 navy blue, which I have owned in the past, but the bracelet wasn't as comfortable, I found, and the lume and legibility wasn't as strong, surprisingly, as the Halios Fairwind. But that's just my humble opinion. I highly recommend you check out this Canadian microbrand if you can. They tend to sell out of new releases very quickly, though. So I always like to have a good pilot watch in the collection, and this happens to be a well-made German Flieger. This is a 39 millimeter watch from the brand Archimede, and I think it's actually better than any comparable Stova, Laco, or Damasco for the sub $1,000 price point, because I really just like how legible the dial is, the really nice placement of the date at the 6 o'clock, thermally blued hands on this pilot watch, and it also has a nice bracelet option. So this bracelet's actually a very nice fine link bracelet that's quite comfortable. And if I'm being honest, this watch quenched any desire of me trying to buy an IWC Mark 18 in the future. I just want to flip it over and show you guys the back as well, because it does contain an ETA 2824-2, and it's regulated quite well. Most German tool watches are, and again, this is very similar to kind of a display back you'd probably find on some Zinn and Stova models. Okay, so this past summer, I really just wanted a summer type watch. So of course, Doxa gives you the iconic orange dial, and they tend to make very comfortable watches with a thick cushion case. I ended up landing on a Doxa Sub 750T, which is the largest watch in my collection, coming in with a 45 millimeter case diameter. But of course, the dial and bezel is a lot smaller than the cushion style case. This is also one of the oldest watches in my collection. I think this is circa around 2004, 2005. And it's actually a limited edition Doxa. I prefer this over like a Doxa 300 because it's got a flat sapphire crystal. I do prefer of a slightly larger case, and the beads of rice bracelet is a little more substantial. It's about 21 millimeter lug opening here, and then of course you got the signed Doxa clasp with the jellyfish logo there. But yeah, this watch really pops on the wrist, and I'm happy to have a vintage Doxa in the collection. Down the road, I might like to try some of the newer Doxas like the 600T with some of the different colorways that are available. Now, as I alluded to at the beginning of this video, around this past fall, I was lucky enough to pick up a Grand Seiko White Birch, which boasts one of the best dials that they've put out, as well as their new in-house 9SA5 movement, which is a high beat movement with a phenomenal 80 hours of power reserve. And this is one of a few Grand Seikos where I actually think that the decoration of the movement through the see-through caseback is really outstanding. I like that they hollowed out the automatic rotor so you can see the bridges and plates for the movement a little bit better. And you can just see that balance wheel going crazy. It's got a dual impulse escapement, which allows it to be very efficient while beating away at 10 ticks per second and affording this watch that 80 hours of power reserve. Another big upgrade for this Grand Seiko I find is the clasp, which is very well integrated into the bracelet. There's no large gap like there is on my Grand Seiko SBGN 003. And also, this watch is fairly thin for one of their automatic movements, coming in at just under 12 millimeters. That new in-house movement does make this watch very thin, and I really like the case profile. It's got a very low center of gravity, and it sits extremely well on the wrist. So this is a definite highlight for this year, and I can't wait to see some of the future Grand Seiko models that are coming out in 2022. Okay, and so about 1 month ago, I ended up picking up my first Baume Mercier. This is their Baumatic with the 5-day in-house chronometer, which ticks a lot of boxes for me. I was looking for a really nice blue and fume dial with a big date, and something a little more minimalistic. I mean, to be honest, I was really leaning towards like a Nomos with that Bauhaus design, but this watch came up quite locally, and I was lucky to snag this watch for well under retail. And I gotta show you guys the case back too, because I'm pretty impressed with how Baume & Mercier designed and implemented their in-house movement through the see-through case back. And you even get really high-end components like a silicone hairspring. So this watch is very shock and anti-magnetic. And on top of that, it is chronometer certified. And you're getting all of this in a watch that's very thin, about 10 millimeters in thickness. So I consider this kind of like my more dressier sports watch, and it comes in at well under $5,000. So honestly, I can't wait to give you guys the full review of this watch. I'm fairly impressed with this Baume & Mercier, and if you guys get a chance to check one out in an AD, I suggest that you do. And last but not least is the watch that I was actually wearing on my wrist during the course of this video, and that is the Monta version 2 Ocean King. Now, I've been meaning to try out a Monta for quite some time. They are like a micro brand, but they've gained a lot of attention. They're on the more luxury side of a micro brand, and they used to make straps and bracelets for Rolex, I believe. So the quality of this watch is really evident when it comes not just to the dial and the finishing, but on the bracelet, which like you can fold up like this. It articulates extremely well. And the clasp actually has the Rolex glide lock type extension system. So if you really want to, you can pull this down and you can on the fly adjust the length of the bracelet, which is a really cool feature. And one of the main selling points that I got into this watch for. I haven't been spending too much time with it just yet, but I do hope to review this Monta Ocean King a little bit further in the channel. It does have kind of a navy blue dial that's actually quite dark under certain lighting conditions. And I like the stainless steel bezel insert for this particular model of the Ocean King. Okay guys, so that's a wrap on my State of the Watch collection for the end of a year 2021. As always, I'd love to hear your feedback in the description of this video, so be sure to make sure you leave a comment down below. What was your favorite watch that I featured here? What do you think that I should still check out for the year 2022? As always, if you enjoy the content, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. It helps me out a lot. And as always, I can't wait to catch you guys in the next video.